Let your kids watch it!
Welcome everyone to the UndercoverBrony Reviews. The episode reviewed today will be The Cutie Pox, written by Amy Keating Rogers. Fellow bronies and Pegasisters, are you tired of your boring old job? Well, act now and get some of our heart's desire to get the job of your dreams. Supplies are limited, so act now. Warning, may cause an uncontrollable work ethic and multiple job syndrome.
And also may include a mild case of identity dysphoria. That's cool.
Exactly. So, hey guys, welcome. We're finally back on Skype. They did an update, and Snakeskin's internet connection is finally doing its damn job.
It's been around for like 28, but finally Skype's working okay. I can actually see John pretty okay without doing a whole bunch of like lagging crap with the hand. So that's nice.
Woo.
I love it when technology is capable of so much, but only is able to achieve the bare minimum.
Hashtag first world problems.
True enough.
But we're here to talk about Cutie Pox. Honestly, this was one of the earlier episodes that came across as rather weird, but it's also a really good Amy Keating Rogers episode, so let's get started.
I remember when this episode came out, and everyone and their mom had like different ideas on how Cutie Pox. Yeah, that could be like that. Could
Cutie
be
Parks and Recreation.
No, that'd be like if Friendship is Magic got its own like theme park, and then you could have like the little play place for the kids with like a playground and stuff. Be called, I don't know. Welcome to Equestria Land. Over here is Cutie Park, where the kids can ride a carousel, which is really weird because why would a horse land have a ride where you ride horses? Anyway, yeah, so no, none of us really knew how cutie marks work. I mean, we did, but we didn't because the show was like, the show flip-flopped back and forth between it being a thing of like, oh, you find out what you're good at, or it's like, oh, it's destiny. You're destined to do something that you may not even be stoked for. Or if it's just a quirky fashion statement. Because let's be honest, what the hell is Silver Spoon's cutie mark for? Could she like... Did she just like do that thing where you put a spoon here and go whoosh, and then you watch it fly off to Mars, and then Destiny was just like, you know what, this kid's got a future in flipping spoons, whatever.
You know what? I'll tell you this. I'm just thinking of we're at the end of the show, because this is 2020 when we're recording this, but we're at the point where the show has ended last year.
Almost a full year ago.
What the fuck cutie marks are about?
Yeah, are they destiny? Are they choice? Is it a fluid spectrum? I don't know. So this episode,
well, it is a land of magic, so you can kind of say that we couldn't really figure out what the fuck to do in a land of magic, so just fuck it, it's magic. It'll take care of itself.
So this is the episode that reminded me of the opinion everyone used to have on Apple Bloom. At least for the most part, everyone had their own favorite, and to a degree, everyone liked all three of the CMC. But I seem to remember a certain fan consensus that Sweetie Belle was the most endearing. Scootaloo lent herself more to fan fiction plot lines. And Apple Bloom was always just kind of there. The show I feel at this point tried to push her as like not the main character of the CMC, but de facto leader, and the CMC wasn't like an equal unit. It was like Apple Bloom and her friends. I'm not saying the CMC was a vehicle to push Apple Bloom, but at least I remember back in the day, I wasn't too hot on Apple Bloom. I warmed up to her as the show went on because the show stopped trying to, because out of all the CMC, she's the one that had getting her cutie mark as like her sole motivation. I mean, Scootaloo and Sweetie Belle had other things going on. Sweetie Belle had her things with Rarity. and like trying to find herself creatively. Skulu was learning how to fly, and then also doing sports and stuff. Apple Bloom is just kind of like eat, sleep, wine, repeat. And this episode, I mean, we had some interesting clips from it. Isn't this the episode where she's just like, I want it now?
That was from season 1, the first.
Okay, see,
Apple episode.
I thought that, but this episode had a lot of edits too, and I felt kind of bad for her, watching the episode. But at the same time, I'm just like, I don't know. I didn't dislike Apple Bloom, but I didn't really like her until later. I really think it was Sleepless in Ponyville when the writers realized, okay, you know what? We have two options: push Scootaloo, which they kind of did, considering the next season that we had Flight to the Finish, or we treat them as equals, which they started doing more. And Apple Bloom was able to shine later when they stopped writing her as Cutie Mark, Cutie Mark, Cutie Mark, Cutie Mark.
Mm-hmm. And I'll say that this is the start of an upward trend with Apple Bloom, because we're starting to get some better Apple Bloom episodes, instead of just the generic of called Cutie, because again, like I said, that episode was hold on, wait for it, -5 stars. So
No, it wasn't great. It really wasn't great. It was so not great. It really was -5.
Yeah.
So
let's get started on the episode.
Yeah. Our story begins on a bright sunny day. Apple Bloom and the Cutie Mark Crusaders, they're be chilling, and they're trying to bowl, which of course everyone always points out the oh look, it's the Big Lebowski, because you see John Goodman and so there's a part where Apple Bloom throws her bowling ball. Which, by the way, how are ponies able to bowl again?
Well, here's what's interesting. Before they even get into the bowling alley, fun fact: this was the first piece of animation that I saw from this show. Let me explain. So when I when I was not a brony, when I was still kind of hating on it, there was an individual who had the name Playing with Maui, and because he started his channel back in 2007, I want to say, doing Wii games and whatnot. So he had that name. Him and his crew all became fans of the show, and he was doing a birthday stream, I believe, and he started it with the intro scene, and he stopped it right as they were getting into the bowling alley. And I genuinely looked at it. I'm just like, why the fuck do you like this? This is so fucking girly. Like, it just seems so childish and generic at that point for me. But knowing the episode now, I actually really enjoy it. But I gotta say, I'm shocked that Apple Bloom actually did not have her teeth just chip away when she was doing the bowling, but yet it got chipped away from falling later in the episode. It's weird.
It really is. It really is. So Apple Bloom makes a throw, and then some goober in the back's like, "Hey, look, a bowling, Cutie Mark!" And then she's like, "Oh, let me look at my ass," but she didn't get a bowling, Cutie Mark.
Does this ass look like the ass that flies?
I showed that to the missus, and she was howling for 2 minutes. It was great. So she's feeling down. Her bowling ball completely misses the pins. It just makes a bro want to type F in the chat for Apple Bloom.
Because Sweetie Bells goes into the gutter, and I love the fact that it goes into the gutter. She comes back and she's walking past the screen, and she looks at the other two CMC, and she's just like, whatever. And then Scooter goes and tries to buck it, and it just completely starts flying all over the place. And that's where you get to see Big Lebowski ponies. I'm like, You know, the only reason they're in there is because it's a bowling alley. Just
Well,
saying.
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean,
But
they're
I mean, that's where like, what is it? Like 2/3 of the movie happens there.
yeah, they're just chilling there in a freaking bowling alley half the time. Then at some points, I think Steve Buscemi gets shot. I don't know.
I just remember the part where Jeff Bridges goes into that trance or dream sequence or whatever, and I'm just like, wow, that's trippy but awesome at the same time. But you know, Apple Blooms, it's going so slow that it just taps on the front pin and stops. It doesn't even cause the pin to fall down. And I'm thinking, that's physics giving you a big old FU, okay? Just saying.
Like John Cena's old finishing move until they made him change it to the AA.
Yep.
Well, because he was a white rapper, because that was an idea, and then when he started making his more kid friendly, streamlined approach, they made him change it from the because it was originally a dig against another wrestler who's named Brock Lesnar. His finisher was the F5, his was the FU, but that obviously means what it means. But then when he got more kid friendly, he changed it to the attitude adjustment. Which, okay, that still sounds kind of cool, but it's not as powerful. Anyway, so let's see here.
That's your wrestling side coming out.
So despondent over her latest failure. That's that's how TV tropes decide to write their summary.
Despondent
Despondent
failure.
over despondent over her latest failure.
That's crazy.
Real highbrow, boys. And resistant to her friends' effort to cheer up, Apple Bloom decides to kick it in the Everfree Forest. She goes in the forest, falls down a thing, and then she ends up at Sakura's doorstep.
And
And
I do want to say something here.
yes,
When Apple Bloom first goes into the forest, originally this is where Amy Keating Rogers wanted to have her rap, not in testing 1, 2, 3. She wanted to have Scootaloo and Sweetie Belle rap to Apple Bloom before she went into the forest. But at that point, Hasbro was like, that's a little bit too much. So they waited another couple seasons so that, she could actually do it. I love how Apple Bloom, falls and chips her tooth because I'm just like, everyone has done that and either busted a lip open or busted their chin open or knocked a couple teeth out. But thankfully, because she's younger, she should be okay because that tooth will eventually fall out anyway and be replaced with an adult tooth. But I gotta say, when Zakora comes up and it's like, oh, you've gone and chipped a tooth, come with me, I'll get you a remedy. And she goes in and she drinks up the little potion to make her teeth, just magically get better. And I love how the animation is just like it goes in and then out and then it's just fine. And I'm thinking to myself, that kind of looks like the animation from the Magic School Bus when the school bus would actually transform into things. It would like scratch and squash and then twist before it became whatever it needed to be, like a submarine or a plane or whatever. Um, which, by the way, I went back to that show and it's not as good as I remember.
nah,
It was a little. It felt like every character was relegated to their catchphrases, and that's kind of
nah,
sad.
yeah, that sounds about right.
Because you had what was her name? Phoebe, I think. It was just like at my old school we never did this, or Carlos with his weird puns or whatever. The
Carlos.
only good part of that show was Miss Frizzle, especially the
Oh
fact that she
yeah,
had a pet lizard. That was awesome.
Frizzle was cool. Frizzle was
Mm-hmm.
cool. So she's like, Zakora on the wall. Can you get me the dopest cutie mark of all? And Zakora is like, nah. And then she says, there's a flower named Heart's Desire, which I guess maybe the botanist that discovered that flower hundreds of years ago was going through a bad breakup, maybe. And the idea is to make the potion for a crowless rooster, because the idea is, the heart's potion brings out your innate desires. So she steps out to get some amethyst, and I'm not talking about the Steven Universe character with the big old tits. Apple Bloom eyes up the flower and thinks,
Now, what I find funny is, I said this during the commentary, and I'll link it in the description if I can remember, but I gotta say, Apple Bloom is just like, oh my gosh, you have all these potions and blah, blah, blah. And she comes up to Zagora and she's like, I bet you can make a potion that can fix anything. And she wiggles her flank for a second. And I remember I was watching another commentary video from a group called Otaku Ascended, because they used to
Oh, I remember them.
as well. And I thought of this rhyme in my head, and so I decided to do it in the actual our actual commentary. And I'm just like, my dear Apple Bloom, do not shake your flank at me, for I do not like what I see.
God damn it. So at school the next day.
I thought it was clever, so you could shut it.
I didn't say it wasn't. I did not say it wasn't. So at school the next day, Apple Bloom shows up and she's like, holy shit, guys, check it out. I got an ass tattoo. It turns out she's really dope with hula hoops. And
I love how she calls it a loop-de-hoop, because it's like the ring of a barrel that was taken off. And so she's doing that, and she's doing all these tricks. And we see, after a few minutes of her doing little stunts, a second cutie mark appears. And this is for balancing plates on sticks or whatever. And I'm just like, okay. All of a sudden, Snips and Snails have the plates and the sticks, so she goes, and all of a sudden she's, master at it, doing both the loop-de-hoop and the spinning plates. And she's like, oh yeah, this is jamming. And it's funny because you get to see Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon just be like, what the fuck? Wait a second, they're fake. Oh, really? How is it fake that I can do both these things at once with perfection? Like, no, these aren't fake or whatever. And she gets home later that night. And I love how she says that she's plumb tuckered out, when yet she's still spinning the loop-de-hoop and she still has the plates spinning. It's like, what the heck? How are you tired if you're still doing that? If you were, tired, you wouldn't be, like, you'd be too tired to do that. That doesn't make sense. But whatever.
So yeah, that's her whole shtick is she keeps getting cutie marks because, okay, did they ever explain why that happened in the show? It wasn't just because the potion went haywire, right?
No, it's because she has such an innate desire to get a cutie mark, no matter what. It just caused the heart's desire to go into overdrive and give her multiple cutie marks.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. The idea here is that, again, like you said, it's not so much. The thing is that Heart's Desire is supposed to give the Heart's Desire, and Applejack just wants a cutie mark. She doesn't care what it is. It's kind of like you ever see those like psychological studies of like lonely people that like reach out to people, either no matter how good of friends they are or aren't. It's not so much that they want comfort from or solace from that person specifically. It's just that anyone will do, really. And that's the thing with her. She doesn't care about which cutie mark, because she's not really focusing on like what she actually likes to do or wants to do. She just wants a cutie mark. And so Heart's Desire is like, okay, I'm going to give you freaking all the cutie marks so that'll fill the hole in your hollow little heart. Okay, so we find out that late at night, which this scene is actually presented. I don't want to say it's scary because it's really not, but it's just really unsettling because the scene, Applejack hears a bunch of noise at night, and she's like, Apple Bloom, what in heck nation are you doing? And then, door opens, and then, we see what's going on. Daniel Ingram has like the score swelling in like a tense way. And she's just like, wasn't she like balancing on a ball, lifting weights or something?
No, that was later in the episode. She was like tap dancing with her hooves, and she's like,
tap dancing.
Help me, I can't stop. And I love how this was like one of the most memed sections of the Brony fandom back in the day. Do you remember all those like little different musical clues? Like they would have I think my favorite one of that scene that was memed was when they took her tap dancing and put it to that cat groove song. I just remember that being so funny.
So Apple Bloom can't stop her tap dancing, and that's horrible. And desperate for a cure, Applejack takes Bloom to see Twilight Sparkle. And Twilight is like, bro, you got the cutie pox, bruh. And it's a puzzling plague that perplexed ponies back in the Paleo Pony period, where ponies earned multiple cutie marks and were compelled to act out every one of the talents. So, and then there's a point where Apple Bloom just starts speaking French, which I guess makes sense because most of this voice cast seems to be from Canada, and I think pretty much everyone from Canada can speak French to a degree.
Well, yeah, it in fact, one of the guys that I would sometimes do Let's Plays with me, he lives in Alberta, Canada, and he said that what he did in school was they have what's called French immersion, which basically meant that through your entire school career, you would be learning French, so that by the time you graduated, you would actually, be incredibly fluent in French, so that no matter which territory of Canada you were in, you were able to communicate effectively. So I love how she starts saying "Je parle français," and then you have Applejack just being like, "My sister's speaking it fancy," and of course the cutie mark is a fleur-de-lis.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, that kind of reminds. I think Japan has a similar thing. I mean, it's not mandatory like in Canada, but I know that they offer like English classes like throughout most of a person's school career. It's entirely optional, I believe, but but yeah, I know they do that. I was thinking America could do that, but the problem is that when we were kids, it was like an established thing, as far as language goes, because you would see it on like packages and like warning labels. It would go English, Spanish, and then French. Well, around the time we became teenagers, French got phased out, and Spanish is still the second language here. But because we've gotten more integrated with bunches of stuff, I'm not saying there's no point to teaching a second language mandatorily, but I mean, fuck, we can barely teach our own people English. I'm from California. You hear how I talk? This is not correct English.
Well, I gotta say, if we were going to do a mandatory second language program, it should be Spanish, because if you look at it, a bunch of the American population speaks Spanish as their first language,
Yes.
mainly because, they immigrated from Mexico. So you're dealing with, like, I mean, think about this. Every time you call a phone line for like customer service or whatever, it is always, always, always for English press 1, for Spanish press 2, or something like to that effect. And I'm like, if you are going to have two languages, have it be English and Spanish for America at least.
It used to be a thing. I remember even going to Disneyland. Usually when they make for most announcements that they make over the big old park speakers, they have the guy say it in English, and then they have a Spanish guy follow right after. They used to have an Asian language too, which was read by a woman. I'm trying to remember the consonants in my head. It might have been. I assume it might be Japanese, just because that's easily Disney's second biggest fan base is Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's just interesting how that's worked, because it's not like the other language have been phased out. It's just that America has so much more languages now than English and French and Spanish and Japanese. I mean, it's always been that way, but now it's like in the forefront of our culture, which I guess makes sense because we're supposed to be a melting pot. But anyway,
well, it's funny because you were talking about how Japan is like the second biggest like consumer of Disney. Well, duh. Most of Disney is super fucking kawaii. Like, what the hell?
There's 3 different merchandise lines that they have, and that someone is one of them, that is specifically meant to cater to the Japanese audience, because hey, Japan's got it right, man. That's why Friendship is Magic was popular over there too, because Japan knows it's all about cute shit, brah.
Oh, and I gotta say that that intro song for Japan was pretty fucking rad.
Oh, yeah.
Gotta hi.
So after she starts speaking in French, they're gonna try to ask Sakura for a cure, but then she keeps getting more and more cutie marks. So TV Tropes actually has a tree of dialogue here from a scene here. Lily, she's cursed. Rose, hexed. Daisy, enchanted. Spike, no, she's not. Daisy, Lily, and Rose. Phew! Spike, she just has some weird, mysterious disease with no known cure called Cutie Pox. Everyone, Cutie Pox!
And then they all don the fucking like hazmat suits, and I'm thinking, this isn't Monsters Inc. where you're just like, oh, we got a 2319.
I thought Gord Pony Freeman was going to start coming in with a crowbar levitated by his unicorn magic and start busting up Combine.
Don't even get me started about Gordon Freeman.
So they get to Zecora, or rather, Zecora shows up. Twilight tells her what happened, and Zecora's like, she came by because she was trying to find out what happened to some ingredients that disappeared from her house, because, Apple Bloom straight up stole from her. She happens to have the cure for Apple Bloom. It's called the Seeds of Truth. Mm-hmm. It's a flower that flourishes once the truth is told. So Apple Bloom, of course, she doesn't want to tell the truth because, bro, telling the truth sucks. Like, you feel better about it afterwards, especially if, you tell the truth and you and the person, like, work things out. But up until then, you're just like, it's like that thing in your chest, because you have a mixture of guilt and shame and paranoia and anxiety and fear, and it's all just like... So I get it, Apple Bloom. But she tells the truth.
Say, when you're younger,
dude,
realize that you're thinking, oh my gosh, everyone's going to hate me, blah, blah, blah. But really, it's one of those things that you realize the older you get, that telling the truth actually feels a lot more cathartic than just trying to hide it away. You know what I mean? Because I've had multiple instances.
Take it from a guy that's spent most of his life repressing things for the benefit of others. Don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's because not good. It doesn't make you feel good. It never makes you feel better. It's a hollow comfort. And then next thing you know, you end up with 39 different ass tattoos. It's really, or maybe that's just drinking in Vegas. I just know Apple Bloom tells the truth. And when the seed sprouts, she eats it. She swallows that seed.
I love how you have Twilight being like, will somebody please tell the truth? And then Pinky's just sitting over there sweating like, okay, I told Mrs. Cake I only ate 2 of her cornbread cakes, but I really ate 3 or something like that. Okay, 6. And then they're just like, nothing's happening. And then Pinky's like, make it stop. I'll make it stop. So Apple Bloom eats the flower. And I love how as soon as she swallows it, she can feel the effects wearing off immediately because she just relaxes and like falls to the ground. And I just love that because she's just thinking, "Oh, thank God, it's finally over." And that's also a very subtle way, like you were saying, of where you can feel a lot better after you do tell the truth. So it makes a lot of sense.
And then after that, all's forgiven, not just because it's a kid's show, but Apple Bloom's a kid. I mean, if she had done this stuff when, like, if I don't know, Fluttershy or one of the older main six did it, yeah, I mean that'd be a little understandable to hold a grudge. But they're all perfectly aware that she's learning and stuff. She decides to write a letter to Princess Sunass about the lesson. There are no shortcuts in life. That honesty is always the best policy, and all good things come to those who wait. That all good things come to those who wait, I've always felt kind of a contentious lesson. Not, this won't take forever, but just sometimes you really do actively need to go out there and like try to find and obtain the things you want and the things you're looking for, because
Mhm.
sometimes if you, I mean, and I know they don't mean it this way, but it's kind of like that thing that people used to criticize Cinderella, right? That Disney movie. Everyone's like, she didn't do anything. She just waited for something to happen and it happened. That isn't really what happened, but that's what's interpreted. And that's kind of like the thing here. Sometimes you actually have to like work for it. In Cinderella's case, she was with an abusive stepmom and her daughters, that she was literally going to go because the idea was she did like 28,000 chores that day, and she was able to make it at just the nick of time. And then they ruin her dress, and then they're like, "You can't go now, loser." And then, yeah, sure, fairy godmother shows up, but that's the point with Apple Bloom. It's like, there's wanting to go out and chase it, but then there's trying to force yourself to. You ever see those people that like have salary jobs or business people, or they have like these big position jobs? Like, yeah, they're making money and they might even like what they're doing, but they don't like love it. They're just doing it because they know that it's lucrative and it's, I don't know, not safe, but you know what I mean? That's kind of like what Applejack wanted. That's what I mean. And that's been like the central thing with her character. She didn't want a specific thing. She didn't focus on what she likes to do in her own talents. She just wanted anything Cutie Mark that wasn't going to chain her to the farm, like
Mhm.
Applejack and Big Mac, which she
Yeah,
ended up getting with the other two, but
yeah. Well, I will say this. You were talking about how the lesson of good things come to those who wait is kind of contentious. I feel like the way they need to word it is not from that, but more of like having the meaning be more of a delayed gratification sort of thing. Because if you really look at it that way, delayed gratification actually does help because number one, it teaches self-control, which is a big thing in our society that needs to still be there because there's a lot of people that are thinking, oh, I can get whatever I want whenever I want it. And it's like, no, you can't. That's not how life works. But you also can, it also feels a lot better to have the delayed gratification because you've earned it, that you,
mm-hmm.
because like when Katie and I eventually have kids, what we want to teach them is that delayed gratification that they need, like if they want to, like a video game or something like that, they need to save up for it because then they can know they've earned it and they
Mm-hmm.
paid for it and they know, okay, this is also how budgeting works and how we can work through that. There's been
Yeah,
a lot of things like I want to get a hard drive for my computer right now, but I know that I have to wait and save up a little bit before I'm able to actually get it.
right, of
So
course.
it may suck when you're having to wait, but once you get it, you feel a lot better about yourself.
There's new gear I've wanted to get for myself for a long, long time, and I'm really finally truly starting to save up for it. And to be honest, I probably have the money to get to get it or something like it now. But the thing is, like again, like you said, when we were talking gear, I mean, there needs to be research. You need second opinions. You need to make sure you're getting the right thing for you. Make sure it's compatible. Make sure that your gear, that what you have now, works with it, and also, of course, have money. So like. It's a thing where like you shouldn't spend money just because you have it. It's like you should spend money like if you'll have some left. Now, granted, this thing with Apple Bloom isn't about money, but it's a similar idea to what you're saying about that delayed gratification. Because when all 3 Cutie Mark Crusaders eventually get their Cutie Marks, which I still think should have, I don't know if it could have been a finale or a premiere, but I still feel like it should have been a 2-parter. But when they eventually got their Cutie Marks, they're like, you know what, this is right. This feels right. Now the fandom didn't see it that way in a lot of ways because it's like, hey, what happened to Sweetie Belle singing? But that's like the only thing really. And again, this is partially the show's fault, but there's nothing saying that just because you have a Cutie Mark, that's all you do. For all we know, the CMC, they're still bros and they still help each other out throughout the years. But I don't know, maybe Sweetie Belle goes on tour. Sweetie and the Bells, that's her band.
Right.
They play the third wave. They play third wave, new wave. They sound like Duran Duran. I could see that.
Honestly, one of my favorite types of, like, you were talking about, like, Sweetie and the Bells. I'm thinking my favorite of that, like, type of naming scheme for bands is DJ Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch.
Oh my god! Hey, I always told you my plan for Justifiable Treason one day we'll become maybe country or like a bluegrass band. Except instead of Justifiable Treason, I'm gonna name it Eddie Treason and the Renegades.
Right.
Yeah, dude, that'd be sick. But yeah, this episode, what'd you rate it?
I give this an 8.25. This was a fun episode. It had a lot of really good moments, but I do also feel like the lesson could be presented a little bit better, and the overall pacing kind of felt a little all over the place. But other than that, it was a pretty good episode.
I give it an 8. I was going to give it a solid 8 just because I feel like that's good. I feel like it's perfectly above average. Like to me, 7's about average, 8's about above average, and 9 is 9's like great, and then obviously 10 out of 10 is everything I'm looking for in an episode. This episode is exactly above average. That in the way it's kind of interesting. They kind of explore her character without like actually exploring it or like actually telling it to you. When I watched this episode the first time, I remember feeling that like, okay, this show is communicating to me the way she thinks through this potion and how it works. I mean, you get the idea, 2 episodes into knowing Apple Bloom that, she's not really interested in something particular. She just wants something to latch onto. Mm-hmm. And like I said, this only came up once or twice, but she really didn't want to be stuck on that farm like Applejack, similar to how Applejack used to feel. But that went away. Apple Bloom, this episode tells you, hey, she just compulsively wants something. It doesn't matter what it is, and that's her downfall. I mean, yeah, she stole from Zecora, but honestly, the theft and everything is like takes a back seat to all the other stuff going on. Mm-hmm. I thought it flowed decently. Again, morals okay, plot's okay. It's just really solid. It's I mean, considering we went from the premiere to Zero to Luna Eclipse, to the last one. It's a really good cool down episode. Like not cool down in the sense of like, oh, it's of lesser quality, but it's a good stride. Like, you're watching this all in a row and it's like, okay, this episode, the last episode let you breathe a bit. This one gives you a little tension, but it's overall good. And plus more Zecora. That's the show always needed more Zecora.
Yeah. Too bad we didn't get to see a ton of her, except for her having somewhat of a starring role in Health of Information, which was one of the best episodes of season 7. So
Season 7 was. I liked season 7,
yeah.
but yeah, no, I get this one an 8. It was good. Next, I think I asked this about a week ago, but next is May the Best Pet Win.
Yes, that
This
indeed.
is the episode. This is the episode where Flutterdash told me I will ship them, and then I said yes.
Exactly.
Now,
So
Rainbow, my
until next
dear, I
time.
can't express my delight.
Oh God, that Soul Rack video. So
Okay. We're
until
peace
next time, that's it from me, John,
and me, Snakeskin.
and we will talk to you guys later. Peace out, Dragon.
Adios.